I never knew a simple bracelet could trigger a billionaire's tears. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The room buzzed with tension, a crowd of eager faces staring at him. Ethan Hale, the tech mogul, the man who had it all. He looked invincible. But at that moment, he wasn't. I could see it in his eyes. His hands shook slightly as he reached for the small velvet box in front of him. My heart raced. What was inside? Gasps filled the room as he cracked it open. A delicate bracelet, shimmering under the harsh lights. But this wasn't just any bracelet. It was encrusted with what appeared to be rare gemstones, blues, greens, reds, as if the colors were stolen from the sunrise. Each gem glinted with a story, a piece of history, but it was the last one that caught everyone's attention. A single dark stone, as deep as the ocean, seemed to pulsate with energy. He paused, swallowing hard. The air was heavy with anticipation. I could almost hear the rapid beats of my own heart, drowning out the whispers in the room. "This is my mother's bracelet," he finally whispered. The silence was deafening. The man renowned for his strength looked fragile, lost in a world where wealth couldn't mend hearts. Suddenly, tears streamed down his face, glistening in the spotlight. The crowd was stunned. I felt a lump tighten in my throat. How could this be? This billionaire, so untouchable, was breaking apart right in front of us. His mother had passed away a year ago, and I remembered how he had thrown himself into work after her death, ignoring the pain, hiding behind his success. But this bracelet, it was like a key unlocking everything he'd tried to bury. In that moment, I felt a rush of sympathy, and yet something deeper, a question bubbled up inside me. What had he sacrificed to reach this point? Was it worth it? While the crowd around us murmured in confusion, I could sense the inner turmoil, the struggle he fought daily, cloaked in designer suits and boardroom victories. As he choked on his emotions, I caught a glimpse of the bracelet's detail again. An intricate design resembled a map of his life, of paths taken and forsaken. What had led him here, to this precipice of despair? I could tell there was more beneath the surface. Just then, a voice broke through the silence. An elderly woman at the back stood up, trembling. "You need to know the truth, Ethan." All eyes turned to her. The atmosphere thickened. Even Ethan's sobs halted. I felt the anticipation in the room shift again. What truth? His face revealed a mixture of fear and curiosity. "What do you mean?" She took a shaky breath, and the suspense ignited. I leaned in closer, straining to catch every word. "The bracelet, it holds memories. Secrets you never knew." Time froze as we processed her words. What secrets? What memories? I could hardly breathe. The room felt electric. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." The elderly woman's voice lingered like an echo, a rift opening where certainty once stood. Ethan's expression contorted. Fear, hope, and a strain of disbelief flickered through his eyes. "What do you mean by memories?" he asked, his voice still trembling. "Your mother, she carried the history of that bracelet," she continued, stepping into the light, her face creased with lines that told stories of their own. "Those gemstones, they are not just pretty stones. They have been passed down through generations. With them come whispers of the past, stories of love, of loss, and choices made in desperate times." The crowd held its breath as her words hung between us, tangible yet surreal. It felt as if we were on the brink of a revelation that could change everything. The old woman's shaking hands clutched the armrests of her chair as she regained her composure. "Each gem is a memory, a pivotal moment in your family's history. When you wear the bracelet, you might feel something, perhaps understand more about who you are. Is that why?" Ethan's voice faltered again. "Is that why I've always felt so lost?" There was a desperate need embedded in his quest. Iona wished to understand the chasm his success had carved through his life. I watched him, and in that moment, I felt a twinge of something profound. He seemed smaller, human. As the woman spoke of his mother and her legacy, I could sense a shift in Ethan. His sobs quieted, replaced by an intensity one hadn't seen before. "Tell me what I need to know," he urged. What am I missing? Desperate for answers, he leaned closer to the woman, who now seemed to draw strength from the gravity of the moment. Your mother faced choices. She made sacrifices to offer you the life you have now. Some of those weren't hers to give. There was a man, someone who loved her fiercely, but she let him go. Your happiness came at a cost she could never reconcile. Just like that, the room's energy shifted again. I could see the dawning realization on Ethan's face, his eyes widening. My father, he whispered, the words standing stark and heavy between us. She never spoke about him. Holding on to that truth weighed on her. The woman said gently, the bracelet might provide answers you have been searching for, although they may not be what you wish to find. Ethan fell silent, grappling with this new turbulence in his life. I could see the storm brewing within him, threatening to engulf him altogether. How could he reconcile the man he had become with the shadow of a father he had never known? The question spiraled, and yet an unexpected seed of determination began to sprout. Suddenly, a young girl approached the stage. She couldn't have been more than 8, her eyes wide with wonder. Will the magical stones really tell him? She asked, her honesty disarming in the heaviness of that moment. It was a question full of innocence, yet echoed the hearts of everyone present. I could feel the warmth radiate from the crowd. Someone reached out to squeeze the hand of the person next to them, a silent exchange of support. Even amidst the emotional upheaval, small gestures of kindness ignited hope, a reminder of humanity in the chaos. Ethan knelt down, meeting the girl's gaze, and for the briefest moment, a flicker of a smile broke through his sorrow. Perhaps they can help me learn about my past, he said softly. But I have to be ready to listen. As he rose, I could see the cracks in his armor, the billionaire facade beginning to surrender to the man beneath. Hope kindled in the room. We were witnessing a transformation, but the answers he sought loomed like dark clouds on the horizon. Just as the tension began to ease, the lights flickered in the room, and a shadow, heavy and foreboding, loomed large. The woman's trembling hands dropped to her sides, and her eyes widened in horror. No, she breathed out, as she pointed towards the entrance. Everyone turned, and through the large glass doors, a figure emerged, a tall man dressed sharply in a dark suit, exuding an overpowering aura. A ripple of dread swept through the crowd. This isn't over, Ethan, he called, his voice filled with a menacing certainty that seemed to darken the atmosphere. You have no idea what you're about to uncover. Ethan's face paled, memories flashing before his eyes as the weight of the unknown settled back onto his shoulders. Panic surged through me. What had we stumbled into? What secrets were entwined in that bracelet? And how deep did this darkness go? The tension coiled tightly around us all as whispers erupted. Betrayal and confusion echoed like footsteps retreating into shadow. The moment hung precariously, teetering on the brink of revelation and ruin. The bracelet, his mother's legacy, might hold answers, but they also carried a danger I could feel creeping nearer. In that heart-stopping moment, I knew that something had changed irrevocably, and as the man strode closer, I realized we were on the edge of a truth that could devastate everything and everyone. The echo of the man's ominous voice reverberated through the hall, sending shivers down my spine. The air had thickened, suffocating in its tension. I could see Ethan's jaw tighten, the flicker of defiance flickering in his blue eyes. Who are you? He shouted, clenching his fists. It was the bravado of a man backed into a corner, but inside I knew he was fraying at the edges. The stranger stepped closer, a predator playing with its prey. I'm here to remind you, Ethan, that every heirloom has a price. You may think you can uncover the truth about your mother, but there are forces out there who want to keep those truths buried. His gaze swept over the crowd, lingering on each person like a jury passing judgment. And if you dig too deep, you may unearth something dangerous. Murmurs swept through the audience. It felt as if we were witness to a drama unfolding, but what lay beneath this facade left us all trembling on the precipice of fear. I could see the weariness in Ethan's posture, the way his shoulders were burdened with a weight he'd barely begun to understand. Stay back, he shouted, but I could see his confidence wavering. Something deep inside him was shaking, drawing him back to a truth he had wanted to forget. The indifferent comfort of success that had once shielded him now felt as fragile as glass. That I stepped closer to Ethan, feeling the warmth of his body next to mine. a quiet reminder that despite the chaos, he wasn't alone. You need to listen to what he's saying, I whispered urgently. You can't allow fear to dictate your path. Whatever this truth is, it belongs to you. You deserve to know. For a brief moment, he seemed to consider my words. But the man in the dark suit let out a derisive laugh, disrupting the fragile moment between us. Ah, the innocent aide. You have no idea what you're encouraging him to confront. His eyes glinted like cold steel. This isn't merely family history. It's a storm. There are secrets at play that would make your blood run cold. The heavy atmosphere shifted again, stirring something deeper within the gathered crowd. The young girl who had posed the initial question earlier stepped forward, a small voice lifting above the murmurs. But what if the truth helps him? Isn't that worth all the bad things? Her innocence hit like a soft light in a room of shadows. Ethan glanced down at her, a mixture of pain and gratitude in his expression, as though her belief offered him a route through the impending darkness. You're right, he said quietly, though I could still see doubt gnawing at him. But what if it leads to something I can't handle? As the man approached, Ethan's resolve fortified. I can't live in fear of the past any longer. It's my life, my history, whatever it holds. And yet, as he said that, the glimmer of determination was misted with uncertainty. The stranger paused, as if reconsidering his angle. Very well, but remember, some truths are shackles, and the only thing they confine is the soul. He smiled then, but it did nothing to dispel the dread pooling in my stomach. The old woman shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The bracelet will reveal what was meant to be forgotten, she said to Ethan. But it may unleash far more than you anticipated. With a single hand gesture from the man in the suit, a heaviness enveloped us all as he spoke darkly. The question isn't just about what you will uncover, Ethan. It's about what you will lose once the truth surfaced. The tense silence fell, thickening with unsaid fears. I couldn't shake the chill creeping through the air, laced with an unnameable foreboding. As Ethan's expression darkened with every word spoken, I felt an abrupt wave of determination surge through me, a need to shield him from the unraveling shadows closing in. Whatever the truth is, we will face it together, I declared, the steadiness of my voice catching even myself by surprise. But my heart raced in the face of his impending discoveries. Would I be standing at his side, or would this journey ultimately push us apart? Suddenly, a young woman burst through the door, gasping for breath, her face flushed with urgency. Ethan, you need to come with me. They're coming for the bracelet. It's not safe here. What had begun as a moment of revelation was spiraling rapidly into chaos. The invisible threads of family, legacy, and bloodshed intertwined tightly with our very souls as I watched fear wash over Ethan's face. The strangers, the secrets, they weren't just tales anymore. They were alive with action and intent, ready to swing like a pendulum at any moment. Ethan, I called, grabbing his arm. We can't let them take this from you. Not now. But even as I spoke, uncertainty clawed at my insides. The feeling that we had jumped into a raging storm without a life preserver, the menace of danger yawned wide before us. One thing crystallized in my mind. We stood at the threshold of not just facing the past, but having to decide how far we were willing to go to uncover it, and what we might lose in the process. And all the while, the darkness lurked just beyond sight, mocking us with its endless reach. Ethan's grip tightened around my arm as the urgency of the situation hit us with the force of a tidal wave. Panic danced in his blue eyes, threatening to drown any remnants of bravery that had surfaced moments before. We have to go, he said, voice low but urgent, fear threading through his words like a dark web that I could feel the weight of all his questions unasked, the burden of those ancestral secrets pressing down on us like a shroud. The girl's innocent plea echoed in my mind, but it felt smaller now, swallowed by the chaos of our reality. I wanted to assure him, to promise that the truth would bring clarity, not despair, but the words caught in my throat as the young woman gestured for us to follow her. She led us through the back exit of the hall, the darkened alley illuminated by street lamps flickering like lost stars. The night air was sharp and electric, laden with the taste of fear and the adrenaline of flight. We ducked into shadows, the sound of hurried footsteps echoing behind us, a distant reminder that we were not alone in this pursuit. Who are they? I asked the young woman, my heart racing as I glanced at Ethan, whose face betrayed the storm brewing inside him. He needed answers, and so did I. Relatives, she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. The kind who would do anything to keep those secrets buried. They don't just want the bracelet. They want to erase everything that could ever bring their past into the light. That my heart sank as I looked from her to Ethan. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to scream, yet my voice wavered with the weight of impending danger. All this time, we had been tiptoeing around a precipice, and now it felt as if we were tumbling headfirst into the abyss. They wouldn't listen, he said, desperation coloring his voice as he ran a hand through his disheveled hair. Every time I tried to bring it up, it was as if I was speaking another language. They never wanted to talk about her, about my mother. The shadows danced over his features, betraying an inner turmoil that twisted my heart in knots. There's still time, I urged, almost to myself. If we can get to the bracelet first. But what then? Ethan shot back, a mixture of anger and fear cracking his otherwise composed facade. What if it reveals something too dark to bear? Just then, a glint of silver caught my eye from the corner of the alley. It was a security camera, our lifeline. We can't let them catch us, I said, my mind racing. Smart tech. We can alert the police. A lawyer, anything. We just have to get proof. The fleeting moment of hope brushed against Ethan's fear like a gentle hand, but that glimmer faded as quickly as it appeared. And if they catch us first? His words felt like a punch to the gut. Before I could respond, a scream sliced through the air, sharp and piercing. It was the girl who had spoken up earlier during the confrontation. My stomach dropped as I turned, realizing she hadn't made it to safety. Ethan, help, she cried, her eyes wide with terror as she was dragged backward by two shadowy figures emerging from the darkness. Instinct kicked in, and without thinking, Ethan charged toward her, his fear morphing into determination. I whipped around, following closely, my heart thumping wildly as I shouted for them to let her go. But I was met with laughter, cruel and mocking, from the strangers who were pulling her away. Foolish boy, one of them sneered, releasing the girl and shoving her toward the ground. You think you can play with forces greater than yourself? This isn't just a family affair. It's a war. I rushed to the girl, pulling her to her feet. Ethan's courage was infectious, but it also sent shudders of harsh reality through me. I wasn't just protecting him. I was stepping into a battle we weren't prepared for. As we stumbled back, retreating into the night, I could see Ethan struggling to maintain his composure. His hands were shaking, and his breath came in ragged gasps. We need to get the bracelet before they do. I need to know. But how had this turned into a race against time? The truth promised to be a double-edged sword, and the stakes were rising with every second we evaded capture. With those thoughts weaving a tapestry of confusion in my mind, I clung to the image of the bracelet, the key to a legacy yet unseen, a truth buried in shadows but now stirring in the light. Just as we reached the end of the alley, something inside Ethan shifted dramatically. A loud crash resonated behind us, drawing our attention, and a tidal wave of dread washed over me. They were closing in, encircling us like a pack of wolves. Go, I screamed, urging Ethan forward as we sprinted toward the main street. But as I looked back, I saw something that sent icy dread flooding through my veins. The man in the dark suit had arrived, his demeanor calm but deadly, and clutched in his hand was that very bracelet glinting under the streetlight like a beacon of despair. In that moment, Ethan froze, realization dawning in his eyes as everything we fought against bridged the gulf between the past and the terrifying present. The truth had emerged, but at what cost? My heart raced, and an overwhelming sense of impending unraveling engulfed us both as those winds of darkness whispered secrets into the night. As the dreadful reality sank into my bones, we stood paralyzed in the street, fear rooting us to the pavement. Ethan's breathing was erratic, a sharp contrast to the chilling calmness of the man before us, still clutching the bracelet like one would a fond memory, the kind that goes sour with age. Ethan, I whispered urgently, tugging on his arm, but his gaze was locked onto the relic of his family's past. The man in the suit stepped closer, an inscrutable smile playing at the corners of his lips. There was power in that smile, a sinister pleasure at the edge of chaos. I must say, the air is surprisingly resilient, he remarked, his voice smooth like oil yet laced with malice. We're not done, Ethan said finally. though his resolve was faltering. I could see the tumult of emotions swirling in his blue eyes: fear, anger, and a deep-seated sorrow too heavy to bear alone. This was more than just a battle for a bracelet. It was a fight for his identity, for the truth of his mother and the legacy he had been entwined in all his life without knowing. The man raised an eyebrow, intrigued by Ethan's defiance. You think you can reclaim what was lost, don't you? That this piece of jewelry can somehow illuminate the path to a brighter tomorrow? Oh, Ethan, how naive. The past cannot be altered. He stepped back, allowing the moonlight to shine upon the bracelet, making it shimmer a mocking dance against the backdrop of our despair. The flicker of vulnerability flashed across Ethan's face, but he steeled himself. If I have to confront it, I will. I won't be a puppet in your game anymore. Just then, as if summoned by our desperation, a flicker of hope surged within me as I spied a nearby coffee, a place bustling with life just a moment ago, and a perfect refuge amidst the surrounding chaos. Ethan, we should move, I urged, knowing we had only moments before the man's sinister entourage would descend upon us. The man chuckled darkly. You think running will save you? Wherever you go, the past will follow. Family ties are bonds much stronger than you realize. With that, I began to pull Ethan toward the cafe, but a sudden commotion erupted behind us. The shadows we had evaded now descended, silhouetted against the dim streetlight. This way, I yelled, bounding toward the cafe's entrance, pushing through the door just as two figures burst onto the scene. Inside, the atmosphere had shifted. Frantic yet alive, patrons were blissfully unaware of the turmoil just outside. I could hear the heartbeats of strangers thump through their chests while my own felt like a throbbing drum, echoing through my veins. I scanned the room for a way out, a glimmer of hope in the faces of those lost in their own worlds. Ethan still appeared shaken by the encounter. What'll we do? He breathed, glancing nervously toward the windows, where shadows loomed like unwelcome phantoms. Stay quiet. Hide, I whispered, guiding him toward a secluded booth against the wall, where dim lighting enveloped us in momentary safety. We need a plan. Plan? He scoffed, his voice laced with resentment. Do you honestly think we can gain the upper hand here? They have everything: the ability to erase us, a family secret to bury, and a bracelet that binds us into their game. Maybe, I conceded, trying hard to keep the flickering flame of hope alive. But every story has two sides, and we've yet to uncover the whole truth. If there's a chance we can get that bracelet, perhaps then we'll have something to bargain with, or at least some answers. He stared at me incredulously, clearly struggling to comprehend my optimism amidst the looming dread. What if there's nothing we can handle in that truth? The raw vulnerability in his voice sent shockwaves through me, leaving me momentarily speechless. I believe there's power in knowing, Ethan, even if it's difficult to face. I placed my hand on his, seeking to draw strength from him as much as he sought from me. We must rise above this together. As we sat in the shadows of the cafe, I saw a waitress move about the room, unconsciously providing a momentary veil under which we could regroup. But the air was thick with Tinziona brewing storm on the brink of breaking. Suddenly, my attention darted to the entrance. I could see flashes of their dark silhouettes gathering in voices that carried through the glass. Panic seized my heart when I recognized one standing at the forefront, the woman from the alley, the one who had risked everything to warn us. Her eyes searched the room frantically, filled with urgency. But did she know they were close? I turned back to Ethan, but before I could say anything, the lights flickered ominously overhead, casting shadows that felt alive. It was a warning, and I knew then that our time was running out. In a heartbeat, the door swung open, rattling against its frame, and my breath caught in my throat. The man in the suit stepped inside next to the woman and scanned the cafe with a discerning gaze. He found us almost instantly, every breath I took feeling like the last as his icy stare locked onto Ethan's grief-filled eyes. And then, to my horror, he smiled. "Here you are," he said, the amusement dancing in his tone, "just where I thought you'd be." The cafe buzzed with a hum of conversations and clinking cups, but all I could hear was the pounding of my heart, thudding violently against my chest. I dared not breathe as the man in the suit made his way toward us, the malicious glint of victory gleaming in his eyes. Ethan's hand trembled beneath mine, a tiny spark of warmth quickly overshadowed by the icy dread enveloping us. "Ethan," I whispered, clutching his fingers tighter. We need to, but the man interrupted, his voice a serpent's hiss as he leaned against our booth, a predator savoring the moment before the kill. You really are a creature of habit, Ethan. Running to the shadows, hiding among the unsuspecting. It seems your mother has taught you well. Ethan's jaw clenched, the flicker of emotion in his eyes raging into an inferno. Don't you dare talk about her, he spat, his voice a mixture of fury and hurt. You have no idea who she was. The man smirked wider, relishing the remembrance. Oh, but I do. I've seen the games played, the chains forged in secrecy. He paused, his gaze flicking towards me, a sneer creeping along his lips. And it appears you've found a convenient accomplice in your little search for the truth. Our eyes met, and I could see the tide of despair washing over Ethan. We're not partnered in this. We're surviving, I corrected, my voice a quiet anchor amid the turmoil. Surviving? He echoed, letting out a soft, bitter laugh that cut through the atmosphere of the cafe like shattering glass. What good is survival if it's just prolonging the inevitable? Before I could answer, the waitress returned to our booth, unaware of the tempest spiraling just beneath the surface. Can I get you anything? She asked, her eyes sweeping across the table, oblivious to the heavy silence engulfing us. Coffee, I replied, desperately clutching to an anchor of normalcy. And, what he ordered, I added, nodding at Ethan, unsure of his state. Her eyes flicked to him, concern etched across her face. You okay? Fine, he muttered, the word dripping with misalignment as he stared daggers at the man before us. Fine, the man mocked, his eyes narrowing, wondering if the waitress could sense the tension crackling in the air. A noble fight, indeed. Without another word, I pushed my foot against Ethan's, a subtle reminder that we had to stay focused. But even my small gesture was drowned out by the encroaching chaos more figures had entered, filling the cafe with an eerie energy. The woman who had warned us was among them, flanking the man like a loyal shadow. Ethan, she called, her voice piercing through the din of the cafe. It fluttered like a wing against glass, echoing with desperation. We need to go. For a brief moment, a flicker of resolution sparked in Ethan's blue eyes at the sight of her. No, he shouted suddenly, his voice cutting through the immediate chaos. You don't get to dictate where I go or what I do anymore. The woman flinched at his tone, the pain in her expression unmistakable. This isn't just about you, she implored, stepping closer. The forces we're facing don't say we. You made your choice ages ago, he shot back, the retort clawing its way from deep-rooted hurt that no. This is about saving you, she pressed, her voice trembling with emotion. You're in danger. As the onlookers began to notice the mounting agitation in our booth, the man's eyes flicked toward the growing attention. Audience participation, he mused, feigning nonchalance. Seems our little gathering has become quite the spectacle. Perhaps I should capitalize on this, he turned, raising a hand for silence. And like a puppeteer, he commanded the attention of the cafe. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? What you're witnessing here is a living tale of betrayal, legacy, and a quest for the truth. The patrons began to murmur, intrigued by the drama unfolding just a few feet away. My stomach sunk, the world slowly closing in. The warmth that had been sparked by the waitress' kindness felt extinguished, leaving behind the cold awareness of our vulnerability on display. Stop, I yelled, desperation flooding my voice. This isn't a show. Ethan's gaze darted between me and the man, a tempest brewing in his heart. Don't you dare, he shouted, his fury bubbling to the surface. This is my life, not your plaything. But a sinister gleam overtook the man's eyes. But everything that belongs to the past is fair game. And what's more perfect than turning a family reunion into a theatrical spectacle? The waitress, now visibly alarmed, took a step back. A couple began to gather their things, while others whispered amongst themselves, igniting an uncontrollable wave of anxiety. Just then, I remembered the bracelet, the very thing that had chained Ethan to this nightmare. What if within its confines lay the key to a truth that could break the binds of our captivity? A thought ignited, the urge to confront this head-on. Ethan, I urged softly, the bracelet, we might need to find it, confront it instead of running. His eyes flared, holding a tumultuous cocktail of hope and dread. But the man stepped forward, reading the shift in our demeanor. You can't run from your fate, Ethan. And trust me, once you lay your hands on that bracelet, you'll wish perhaps you hadn't. The weight of his words fell heavy between us, a chilling reminder of all that had been lost. My heart raced as Ethan gripped his fist, the inner turmoil mirrored in the tightening of his mouth. Let's go, the woman pleaded again, glancing nervously around the cafe. We have no time. But as Ethan opened his mouth to respond, a loud crash erupted from the back of the cafe, scattering patrons in every direction. In that moment of chaotic distraction, Ethan froze, his eyes locking onto the melee unfolding. And in that split second, the man's expression transformed as he commanded attention once more. Here comes the fun, he declared, his face glowing with a twisted sense of joy that I could feel the air thicken, the fear mounting as I turned slightly to see what chaos had erupted. My heart raced, another threat encroaching, or perhaps a twist of fate meant to change everything. Ethan, stay ready, I whispered, though even my own heart wasn't sure if it was ready for what lay ahead. But before I could gather my thoughts, a sharp voice from the shadows flashed with urgency and desperation, echoing across the cafe, shattering the delicate thread of anticipation. You know about the bracelet, don't you? It wasn't only meant to bond, but to deceive. The room fell silent, and the sheen of a revelation echoed ominously. Ethan's breath caught in his throat, his face paling as he looked to me. Shivers danced down my spine at the thought what other truths lay beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed. The man in the suit turned, confusion casting a shadow on his cunning demeanor. What did you say? And just like that, with a single statement, the weight of our reality shifted, launching us further into the tempest of chaos that had already begun to consume us whole. The last remnants of chatter faded into an eerie silence that enveloped the cafe, and all eyes turned to the newcomer who had spoken. He stepped forward, a gaunt figure wrapped in a dark coat, eyes glimmering with a clarity that stood in stark contrast to the dread draping Ethan and me. My heart raced. Who was this man, and how did he know about the bracelet? I've been searching for you, Ethan, he continued, breaking the tension like a sharp breath of fresh air. You need to understand the truth before it's too late. His voice, low and rasping, cut through the air, drawing the gaze of every patron around us. What do you know? Ethan replied, his voice steadying against the tide of confusion and fear that threatened to engulf him. What can you possibly know that this man doesn't? He gestured toward the malicious figure who had interrupted our fragile moment of connection, though, much more than he ever will. The man replied, shaking his head slightly, each word laced with urgency. That bracelet, it's not merely a token of your past. It was a key, an instrument of power, manipulated in ways you cannot begin to fathom. Your mother, she was protecting you, and I can help you understand her sacrifices. Ethan visibly recoiled, pain etched across his features. You knew her? His voice trembled, tinged with both longing and rage. And you let this happen? You let me carry this burden alone, among the unfolding chaos. Flashes of kindness emerged in unexpected places. The waitress had returned with a plate of pastries, inadvertently shifting the mood back towards normalcy. Her brow furrowed with concern. Is everything all right? She asked, hesitating as uncertainty cracked through her earlier bravado. Stay away. The man in the suit spat, his face twisted in anger. This doesn't concern you. Actually, it does, the newcomer retorted, a fierce fire igniting in his voice. If only you could see the implications of this game we're all part of. He turned back to Ethan. Look, I don't have the time to explain everything, but there's a reason why others are coming for you. Your mother's legacy isn't just a tragic tale. It's the foundation of something greater, and they want to exploit it. Ethan took a sharp breath, struggling to piece together the crumbling fragments of his reality. What am I supposed to do with that? Use it, the man urged, stepping closer. Take control of your destiny. But first, we have to confront the truth buried within the bracelet. You must find it before they do. What if it shatters everything? Ethan whispered, the raw vulnerability layered over his fragility laid bare. What if the truth destroys me? You're already lost without it, the man replied gently. The softness of his tone cracked through the steely facade of conflict around us, inviting Ethan to let down the walls he had built around his heart. But just as I thought hope coaxed Ethan towards a decision, a sudden commotion erupted at the cafe's entrance. The bell chimed violently as a flurry of figures burst into the confines of our temporary refuge, dark figures in suits, their eyes scanning the room like predators seeking a clear target. "Ethan!" I screamed, panic slicing through my voice as the atmosphere became charged with dread once more. In that instant, the man in the suit approached the newcomer, his face contorting into a mask of malice. "You've meddled enough," he hissed. "You think you can disrupt the plans that have transpired for decades? What's happening?" Ethan growled, his heart racing as he tightly gripped my hand, not wanting to let the warmth slip away even in the face of impending chaos. The gaunt figure lifted his chin, standing taller, a sense of authority swirling within him. "The bracelet is merely the beginning, Ethan. It's tied to more than just heritage. It holds secrets that many would kill for. You must choose," he urged, his expression softening slightly, "to run, or to confront the shadows of your past." The man in the suit let out a cruel laugh, his eyes narrowing into slits. "Time's up," he sneered. "You've outstayed your welcome." With that, the commotion broke loose in the cafe. Tables were overturned as panic spread like wildfire, and I felt Ethan's grip tighten around my fingers, the embodiment of his confusion, fear, and an aching desire to retain his humanity amid the darkness closing in around us. "Run?" the newcomer bellowed, eyes darting toward the exits. "You can't let them catch you now. Find the bracelet. It's the only chance you have left at AS." I caught Ethan's gaze. I saw the storm brewing within him, hope battling against despair. It was that brief moment, just before he took off, that I glimpsed a flicker of the boy I had first met, longing to reclaim his identity amidst the turmoil. But even as he sparked into motion, the waiting shadows surged forward, and I felt a heavy dread welling up inside me. And just as we turned to escape, another loud crash resounded, shattering of glass raining down like a million forgotten dreams. And then, a gasp. The cafe froze in recognition as the gaunt figure fell, struck down, and sprawled across the floor amidst the chaos. The urgency of time lost its essence in that electrifying moment, and I felt Ethan's essence ripple through Maya's anguish merging with mine. Suddenly, silence reigned again, weighty and foreboding, as all eyes turned to share the shock of revelation. Who was the fallen figure? What lengths would the man in the suit go to keep Ethan tethered to the past? We stood at the precipice, perched between the familiar and the unknown, scalded by the consequences of truths waiting to be unearthed. And as Ethan turned to me, the unspoken words hung heavy between us. In this dark labyrinth, where shadows danced and truths shattered, we had to confront the innermost corners of himself before it was truly too late. The cafe floor felt like a stage, the remnants of shattered glass glimmering like stars in a dark sky, framing the unconscious figure sprawled between us and our only escape. For a frozen heartbeat, the world faded into a quiet abyss, leaving only the ragged sound of Ethan's breaths mingling with mine. "Is he?" I choked, desperation clawing at my throat. The man who had come to open the door to Ethan's past lay still, and I felt something shift within our fragile bond. Ethan's grip loosened briefly, a ghost of uncertainty flickering across his face. "He can't be dead," he rasped, panic born of the chaos tightening its noose around him. "He has to know more. We need him." Before I could reply, the malice-laden figure surged forward, eyes wild with victory, brandishing an intimidating presence. "By all means, take your time. But know this," he sneered, voice low and suffocating. "The truth has a cost, and you're not prepared to pay it. Let him go." Ethan roared, taking a step forward, his determination igniting a palpable energy that rippled through the chaos. "But he's not the one you should be worried about." The man chuckled darkly, shifting his gaze towards me, the corner of his lips curling in satisfaction. "Both of you are standing in the way of a legacy you can't even begin to grasp. You misunderstand the strength of what is about to unfold. What do you want?" I shouted, feeling the urge to shield Ethan from whatever darkness loomed in this man's intent. The suit's smile widened, revealing too much of his calculated malice. "Oh, my dear," he drawled, his voice smooth as silk. "It's not what I want, it's what you're willing to sacrifice. With the right alignment, there's power to mold the very fabric of fate itself." Ethan's gaze darted between me and the man, turmoil etched across his features. "I won't let you use me as a pawn." Whatever is tied to that bracelet, I refuse to let it dictate my life. With that declaration, Ethan turned to the fallen figure as though seeking guidance in the stillness of the moment. You promised to help. You said we had to face the truth together, but as the new silence filled the space, I could see doubt creep into Ethan's eyes, darkness threatening to swallow the light that flickered. What if he doesn't wake up? He whispered to me, vulnerability lacing his words. For a moment, it seemed he was confronting his own perceived weakness, a chasm between who he was and the legacy left to him. Ethan, I said softly, reaching out to grasp his arm, you have to find the strength in yourself to face whatever lies ahead. The truth might hurt, but it can also guide you. You can't let your mother's legacy define you. But as I spoke, the man in the suit seized the opportunity. Your mother tried to shield you from your destiny, but now that door is wide open. They will come for you, and this time, you cannot hide behind her skirt. Ethan's eyes flashed with a whirlwind of emotions, the turmoil around him threatening to shatter not just the cafe, but everything he believed about himself. What do you want from me? He shouted, anger mingled with anguish. All at once, the barista, with tears in her eyes, stepped forward, her fragility accentuating the tension. I don't know what's happening, but no one should have to face this alone, she whispered, a warrior cloaked in gentleness. You deserve to know the truth, whatever it may be. I believe in you, Ethan. Her unexpected kindness wrapped around him like a lifeline, softening the jagged edges of despair that had formed in the tumultuous atmosphere. In that fleeting moment of connection, I caught a glimpse of Ethan replacing his self-doubt with determination, a quicksilver flash of hope battling against the weight of the impending storm. But just as Ethan's shoulders straightened with renewed resolve, reality struck with a gut-wrenching blow. The gaunt figure blinked awake, his face username blank as confusion washed over him. You have to run, he gasped, desperation lacing his voice. You're not safe here, no? Ethan pleaded, the shadow of hopelessness creeping back. I can't leave you. You know about the bracelet, about everything. The man in the suit chuckled again, darker this time, and I could discern the victory in his eyes. There's nothing left to lose, boy. The stakes have been raised higher than you can imagine. And just as our hopes flickered to life, that specter of darkness unleashed its true power. The cafe doors slammed shut, trapping us in a snare of silence so thick I could taste the impending doom. In the instant I turned back to Ethan, the realization crashed over all of us like a rushing wave. The gaunt figure had an unsettling look in his eyes, one filled with hesitancy, a guarded recognition of the ritual bindings of legacy and family that could shatter upon exposure. Ethan, he warned, breathless as if the air had been stolen, the truth is coming for you. You must decide before the last light fades. That I looked at Ethan, his spirit merging with mine in a chaotic dance of loyalty, fear, and hope. And then, a panic surged within me as I felt its sudden awareness that sometimes one might have to sacrifice to embrace the future. As Ethan turned that fearful gaze toward the shadows drawn taut, each heartbeat echoed with the weight of the choices ahead. With hesitation stinging the air and every moment stretching into eternity, we knew this was only the beginning of a deeper fight, a battle tethered not just to the past, but to who Ethan would ultimately become. And as chaos danced ever closer, a seemingly innocuous phrase tore from the recesses of my mind. What if the bracelet is merely the start of something far greater than any of us can comprehend? Just then, a chilling truth unfurled before us. The man in the suit began to laugh, the sound reverberating through the cafe, echoing ominously. You have no idea, he warned, malice dripping from every syllable, what you're truly up against. The air hung thick with an unshakable tension, the suffocating silence punctuated by the unsettling laughter of the man in the suit. Each chuckle felt like shards of ice skittering along my spine, binding us tighter to the lurking shadows around us. The cafe, once a semblance of warmth and comfort, had transformed into a crucible of secrets we had yet to uncover. Ethan's breathing quickened, each inhalation laced with the remnants of panic and uncertainty. I could see the tides of memories battling within him, threatening to eclipse the flicker of hope the barista had ignited moments before. He stood, surrounded by remnants of shattered glass and scattered dreams, seemingly at the center of an approaching tempest. Stop it, he shouted, his voice rising, the desperation morphing into fierce defiance. You don't get to dictate how I live my life. The man in the suit drew closer, his smile widening unnaturally. But it's not just your life at stake, is it? You carry more than just your own burdens. You possess a legacy far greater than you realize, and they will find you. You can try to outrun your fate, but fate always catches up. My heart thundered, each beat resonating with the gravity of his words. I wanted to believe that we could escape this web of deceit and darkness, yet uncertainty clawed at the edges of my resolve. The barista clung to hope in her eyes, yet the shadows that loomed outside promised nothing but despair. With trembling hands, I reached for Ethan, grounding myself in the connection we shared. Do you hear him? I urged softly, my voice barely a whisper. He's trying to instill fear, to break your spirit. We can find a way out together. But the man's laughter continued, ringing in our ears like a taunt. You really think you have a choice here? This is not a game you can simply win through bravado or heart. The truth is a jagged pill, and you are bound to choke. In a moment of reckless courage, the barista stepped closer to Ethan, her small frame the starkest contrast to the chaos swarming around us. You are not alone, she said, her voice steady, her sincerity unyielding. Well, face whatever comes together. You have to believe that. A flicker ignited within Ethan, a moment of clarity amid the vast obscurity. Yet, it wasn't a panacea for the turmoil writ large across his face. He glanced at the gaunt figure, who had shifted, anxiety etched deep within his features. What do you know about the bracelet? He demanded, the urgency in his voice palpable. The gaunt man hesitated, the weight of his silence hanging heavy. You need to understand, Ethan. It's not just a piece of jewelry. It's a key to unlock something that has been hidden for generations. Your family history is entwined with forces far beyond your control. Control? Ethan spat, indignation breaking free. Or even fate. What do you know of that? I refuse to be chained to a legacy defined by someone else's choices. But that's just it. The gaunt figure urged, fingers trembling as he gripped the edge of the table. You have to confront it. The bracelet isn't a curse. It's an opportunity, a way to reshape your destiny. Do you really want to let this man dictate your path? A twisted thrill of hope mingled with fear coursed through me. Perhaps within the storm of darkness, there lay a glimmer of light, a chance to seize control instead of succumbing to the whims of others. The cafe seemed to hold its breath, the world outside forgotten as we wrestled with Theos' burden of truth. But just then, without warning, the doors burst open, flooding the room with light. I squinted against the glare, and as it dimmed, a figure stepped through the threshold, an unexpected apparition that knocked the air from my lungs. Ethan. The voice, raw and familiar, reached deep into my soul. My heart clenched as tears pooled in my eyes. It was Taylor, the estranged brother Ethan always spoke of in whispered tones, shadows cloaking his existence in our conversations. I've come to find you. Ethan's world seemed to tilt on its axis as he gazed into Taylor's eyes, both recognition and disbelief warring within him. The invisible thread between them sparked to life, both tethering and threatening to unravel everything we had uncovered thus far. What are you doing here? Ethan's voice trembled, caught between joy and the sheer weight of turmoil that had perplexed his heart for years. But before Taylor could answer, that darkness slipped through the shadows, a malevolent force encroaching upon us, seeking to exploit the newly forged rift. You're too late, the man sneered, his eyes blazing with triumph. You think family can protect you? That bond carries its own burdens, one that could tear you apart just as easily as it brings you together. Ethan's jaw clenched as dread pooled in his stomach. The truth was now a cruel sword, poised to slice through the delicate connections we were so desperately trying to forge. If Taylor was present, the stakes had just risen. We stood on the precipice of revelation, yet we also risked losing everything for which we had fought. And then, in that moment, understanding hit me like a lightning strike. Perhaps the bracelet was not only about Ethan's legacy, but also a symbol of our intertwined destinies, past, present, and future. As chaos boiled around us, I grasped all at once that love is often the fiercest armor we can don, yet it also poses the greatest vulnerability. The world may tear at our seams, threaten our bonds, But the journey through that crucible holds the promise of transformation so long as we have the courage to face it together. Yet, as time spiraled on, my heart raced with another truth. There were forces that would stop at nothing to sever those bonds, and the players in this game were far more ruthless than we anticipated. "Ethan," I whispered, urging him to listen even as uncertainty clouded my vision. Whatever happens next, we confront it as one. That the finality of those words settled around us like quiet fear, an unspoken understanding looming heavy in the air as Taylor stepped forward, echoing the truth in our hearts. "There's so much you don't know, and neither do I, but we can unravel it together before it's too late." And with that, the world twisted again, the man's smile morphing into a malevolence that felt like mist creeping closer, ready to envelop us whole. Time stood still, engulfed in the weight of our revelations. The cafe was a living tableau, the cluttered tables mingling with the tense breaths of patrons, hanging delicately between the silence of shared uncertainty and the rising clamor of danger encroaching upon us. Ethan's world, once defined by the solitary struggle of a man yearning for the truth, was now tangled with Taylor's presence, each heartbeat reverberating with the collective energy of brotherhood forged anew amid the complexities of fate. I could see the flickering dream of reconciliation etched across Ethan's face, yet shadows of doubt cast long over their reunion, remnants of a turbulent past weaving through the air like shadows. "Taylor," Ethan whispered, his voice breaking through the stillness, each word a tender caress laden with unvoiced longing. "I thought you were gone forever." There was a storm within him, a whirlwind of hope mixed with anger, regret cascading from scars that had run deep for far too long. "I've always been here," Taylor responded, his voice steady, a beacon in the dark chaos swirling outside our fragile cocoon. "But it was never safe for me to come home. Not until now." He turned to face the malevolent figure still lurking, the tension slicing between us like a razor's edge. "And now that I'm here, we'll find out together what that bracelet holds. We have to." "I can't keep running from the truth," Ethan replied, determination lacing his words. He was coming alive again before my very eyes. "But what if facing it rips apart what little we have left?" There was a tremble beneath his bravado, the fear of unraveling the bonds that held his reality together. "Then we rebuild it," I interjected quickly, squeezing his hand as though my grip could infuse him with the courage he sought. "You're not alone. We will face whatever lies ahead together." Laughter erupted once more from the dark-suited man, cold and mocking, a stark contrast to the warmth bubbling in our hearts. "Together?" he taunted, his eyes glinting with a predatory gleam. "How quaint. But let me remind you, blood is thicker than water, and it can be a weapon sharper than any sword." And just like that, an unsettling truth crystallized in the air. Our bond was fragile, susceptible to the very forces seeking to compound our suffering. But it was also powerful, an undeniable lifeline tethering us to hope. I looked between the brothers, sensing a surge of energy, a clandestine promise taking form in the beating hearts around the table. "Ethan," Taylor pressed, his voice a steady reassurance. "Whatever lies within that bracelet, it's part of our legacy. We can unlock it, expose it for what it is together." The gaunt figure nodded slightly, his expression a mixture of awe and caution. "But brace yourselves. The truth can't be tailored to your preference. It is raw, undiluted, and often painful. Only you can decide what to do with it." Ethan held my gaze, the storm in him unmistakable, and I nodded once, affirming the direction we were choosing. "We're ready," I affirmed, my heart screaming with the urgency of the moment. If summoned by our resolve, the atmosphere shifted, a palpable tension lacing through the space. The shadows trembled, adjusting themselves as the darkness thickened around us. With fervent determination, Ethan spoke, his voice low yet resounding. "Then let's bring the truth to light. We will unveil the entire legacy, shatter the chains binding us to this nightmare. Either they will listen, or we will be forced to fight." And so began our march toward that fateful confrontation, facing both our past and whatever shadows loomed ahead. With each step toward the doorway, I felt a heart-wrenching duality. It was fear that clawed at my insides, but courage mingled with anticipation pushed me further, locking the shared purpose into place. The man in the suit stilled momentarily, facial muscles twitching as if recalibrating after a shock. Both anger and curiosity flickered within him, You truly believe you can change your fate? The past doesn't wish to be unveiled so easily, boy. But Ethan reached deep down within his spirit, his voice steady, punctuated by fierce resolve. The truth is my inheritance, not yours to wield or bury. It's time to let go of this manipulation. With Taylor at his side and me unwaveringly behind him, we stepped into the empty space that promised to change everything. A cacophony of voices faded into the background, and we drew closer to the darkened figures waiting in the outskirts, eager to seize this moment. As the storm brewed around us, the specter of the past loomed large. Yet, here we stood, the union of estranged brothers and newfound strength threading us together despite all that sought to tear us apart. The bracelet would reveal its secrets, each shimmering gemstone unlocking pieces of a legacy long concealed. But it would also demand sacrifice, one we were prepared to offer for truth, clarity, and our future unclouded by shadows. As we approached the edge of uncertainty, I held tight to Ethan's hand, aware that the hardest choices lay ahead. Yet in that moment of truth, we recognized a vital lesson. Sometimes, the power of love and unity is enough to overcome any storm. And while sacrifice might beckon, it is the embrace of each other that defines our journey forward. The world outside may try to dictate our fate, but together, we held the keys to our own destiny. And as we stepped across that threshold, the whispers of the past igniting a fire within our hearts, I understood boldly fighting for the truth brings us not just freedom, but acceptance of who we are meant to be. And in a moment etched into eternity, I realized, in the end, it isn't about who we were, but the power of those who walk alongside us that truly defines us. We would find our peace and purpose, and together, we would become the architects of the lives we chose to lead.